Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of Business Unboxed with your hosts Kelly, and I'm a chartered accountant, and Cory, who is a multiple business owner. And today we thought we would do kind of like one of the topics that I used to talk about before I had Cory, but this time we'll be able to get his input, and that is 7 habits of highly profitable businesses. So we're just going to go over 7 different habits that we kind of tend to see in businesses that do really well. And then maybe that'll give you a little bit of help as to maybe why you're not seeing things go as well, because maybe you're not focusing on some of these areas, or maybe you're just not doing some of these things to help your business grow to get to that place where it can be really profitable. So I guess the first thing that we're going to talk about is that they know their numbers. And I know that to a lot of people, there may be a lot of business owners out there who don't know their numbers and may have successful businesses. But I don't know, the first example that comes to my mind of this is if you watch, I think it is like there's multiple different versions, but there's like the Lion's Den, Shark Tank, and I feel like there's another variant of it.
Dragon's Den.
The Dragon's Den. And I feel like anytime I'm watching that show, they tend to invest more and do better in the ones where those owners who are in their pitch can give them the actual numbers. So I could be wrong, but I feel like that's what I tend to see. What about you, Cory? Like, you've watched some of those shows. I feel like the ones that come in with all their numbers prepared tend to do better.
Yep. Yep, I think so. And also probably the ones that have either a really good idea or concept, and the ones that uh, have already been practicing the business. So it's not just a startup. They've actually been generating revenue and they've done really well so far.
Yes.
There's
And they're
multiple
able,
factors when you invest in a business. Um,
yes.
but yeah, knowing your numbers is a good starting point.
Yeah. So I think for a start, how you can do that is, well, modern software, accounting software these days, should allow you to be able to keep track of your numbers frequently. The rate at which you enter those numbers in to keep them up to date is another thing. If you are a smaller business owner, you may leave everything, I don't know, a couple of months maybe. If your GST isn't due until bi monthly, you may not do any accounts until that second month. And then some of your numbers are a couple of months old, and then you're not getting a true picture up to date of where you're at. But I feel like most modern accounting software, if you are keeping up to date doing your admin in the business, even if it's just like half an hour every day or something, then there's no excuse not to know the numbers because it's very easy to run reports. I mean, Cory, you've got multiple businesses. How often are you looking at your numbers and checking where things are at to see if you need to make a different decision?
I would check them. I mean, I do some of the accounts, so I essentially check them daily to
Hmm.
do reconciling. I process invoices, I pay invoices, so I'm in there almost daily, checking how things are going. Um, but in terms of making decisions around things, probably more so on a weekly or a monthly basis.
Yeah,
I kind of have a look at, you know, we pay for a little bit extra in our accounts. We have a cash flow forecast. And so I can see if things are going to dip or we have extra money to invest in something.
exactly. So because you're aware of your numbers, you're able to know whether or not you can or cannot do something, whether or not you're in a position, whether or not you're going to be able to
Mm.
pay your suppliers on time, or whether or not a customer hasn't paid and an account's overdue. So it's all these kinds of things that go into being able to be profitable. Right. So I think we've talked enough about that one. So we'll move on to point 2, which is they focus on high margin offers, or I want to say like they focus on the high margin products products and offers of service. I think I'm going to like swap that around too. So essentially, and I've had this happen to me, but you'll go to the supermarket, right? And your favorite product's no longer there. And you're like, oh, like that was my favorite product. I wonder what happened. But it's because those big brands, even though they have plenty different products, they are keeping an eye on which ones are doing better than others, which ones they can make the most money from, which ones are selling, and they are keeping the ones that are doing well, and they drop off the ones that aren't doing well. You can't be afraid to drop a product line if it's not doing well, just because you may have invested a lot into it and you really like it yourself. If the customers aren't there, the more that you try to push it, sometimes the more you're just going to go backwards.
A good example of that, and you have to forgive me, I don't know the exact correct information here, but I'm pretty sure in New Zealand, I think it's Fonterra, pretty sure it's Fonterra, or one of the big cheese companies pretty much wanted to sell off their cheese, their whole cheese division.
Oh.
Um, I don't think it's because it wasn't making money, but I think it was the smallest portion of their entire business. So, this is a multi-billion dollar company, I think. So, even big companies like that have to change their tact and sell off arms of their, or, sections of their product range or their services to either increase cash flow, pay down debt, put that money into investment into things that are doing well already to further
Mhm.
grow them.
Exactly. So they're just one of the things is when we talk about, and if you guys have been listening for a while, I've talked about different types of reporting and dashboards and all that kind of thing, and keeping an eye on your different services and products because there it may be that you are profitable, but you don't realize that maybe one product line or one service is actually dragging you down because you're not covering the costs or whatever it may be. And so your business could actually be doing a lot more if you didn't have those sales coming in because it's actually costing you money getting those sales. So that's something to monitor. If you want to make a highly profitable business, don't be afraid to make those difficult decisions and to be making sure you're actually monitoring each of your products and services to make sure you can see which ones are doing well, which ones aren't, to make in order to make those tough calls. Right, so on to point number 3. Yes, this is actually a really good one. They keep customers coming back because the retention is cheaper than chasing new leads. Now, Cora, I'm going to let this
Hmm.
I'm going to let you take over on this one because you're probably a wee bit more informed and have dealt with clients before. And you kind of also help branding and all that kind of stuff. So you kind of know what brings in customers and the cost of that is. So take away your take on that.
Sure. Yeah, I guess most businesses find, and this works for service-based and product-based, where you put a lot of effort generally um, into leads, into your marketing funnel, converting the leads, nurturing them before they convert, and then obviously you have a percentage that doesn't convert. So really, you want to hold on to the customers that you do have, and you should spend more time and allocate more time to looking after them, checking in with them, um, giving them gifts for Christmas, nurturing them, giving them special offers or discounts or whatever it might be to make them feel valued. Because really, the longer you partner, in most instances, the longer you partner with your clients, the better it is for both parties.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we have I've got a couple of different businesses, and each have their own um, different ways of nurturing clients. So, for example, one business we have hosting clients, and so to retain them, we want to make sure that we're checking in with their websites, making sure that they're being looked after, making sure we do a free review every year on their website, and we go, hey, look, here is some things we've looked at your website that we think might need updating. Maybe the design's a bit dated, maybe this form is a bit gone a bit funny. The hard part, I guess, and I'm going off a bit of a tangent here, is that sometimes when you do that, you come across as just wanting sales, and just
Mm.
seems like you're pushing pushing to get more work and pushing to get money, which is unfortunate. So you do have to be careful with the way you do it. But if you can add value to the customers you already have and nurture them and look after them, that is far better than trying to find new ones all the time. Churn and burn is not where you want to be.
No, exactly. So I think, yeah, loyalty always wins. If you can keep those customers coming back, it's actually going to be cheaper for you to spend the money on nurturing them, because normally that's a wee bit cheaper than constantly going out trying to bring in new ones. Now, obviously, you still need to bring in new customers all the time. If you want to grow your business, you can't continue to keep the same number of customers. But if you can keep a hold of the ones you've got while bringing in some new ones, that's definitely the better way to go. So, point 4 is that they systemize and automate the most mundane tasks normally in their business. So instead of hiring somebody or spending a lot of time, aka money, on doing tasks that are relatively boring or simple, they find a way or a system to that is obviously normally cheaper than a human doing it, and making it as automated as it can. That also eliminates or minimizes the room for human error in a full process if a person's only touching a certain portion of it, because the rest of it is automated using different softwares. Cory, do you want to expand on that and how you do that in your businesses?
Sure. Um, a quick little example actually today, I sat down with we had an admin we had Ella who kind of looks after some admin stuff for us come back from maternity leave, and I've switched us from our old project management system and CRM into Notion, and she was quite happy with some of the features that I showed her because the systems that we had used were obviously two different systems, so you had to log into two different ones and do different things in each. Now they're connected, but also there's just simple features like in tasks and projects, there's room for an actual description
Mm.
and information that there wasn't there before. So, um, you've got to, I guess, spend time. Sometimes, if you have a team of people, it can be a little bit hard to see what automation there could be because you're not down in the weeds. You're
Mm.
kind of doing other things. So sometimes it pays to sit down with a team um, and go through everything to see if there's ways you can streamline things. Another way to
Exactly.
look at it too is that if you have people leave, like we had I guess a big change in the business last year, and so me coming on board, obviously, I have a natural drawn kind of direction to automate and tidy processes up.
Mm-hmm.
But given what happened, it makes sense to do that as well. Go, well, we have staff that are no longer needed for certain things. Therefore, we need to cut down our subscriptions for those things because they don't need access to them anymore. Um, we can move these systems into one to save money, to better connect them, to save time instead of logging into. It's amazing how many, how much time we spend just logging in and out of stuff and copying and pasting data from one thing to another, from your emails into a system and then from there to somewhere else, and then communicating with someone about an email that's in a project. So the more ways you can integrate that, the better. And for those of you, I'm going to push Notion again. So those of you that are on Google, like honestly, just get into Notion. They've just released Notion Mail. They have Notion Calendar. They have obviously the base Notion system, and it all. If you're with Google, it all integrates really, really well, so that it all links together, which should save hours every week.
Yeah, exactly. And time is money, especially in small businesses, where you can save time is you're saving yourself some money. So definitely dig in, even if you do have that team, like Corey said, pull together a team meeting. If you have somebody leave, then take that opportunity to really look at what they were doing and see if some of that didn't make sense, something that's waste of time, if you can move things around, if you can pull two systems into one, all that kind of stuff. And
Also, if there's someone in your team like this is what I found when I was in my last job, and you'll probably find this too, Kelly. Um, if there's someone in your team as a leader that you know wants to do things or is emailing people or is pushing to try and introduce processes or tidy something up, make them the hero of it. Give them
Mm-hmm.
go, yeah, look, we would love you to have a look at our systems.
Yeah.
Have a look at them, give us some suggestions, and let them lead it because one, they enjoy doing it. Two, I assume most of them are probably good at doing it. Uh, so let people that are already in your team champion. It doesn't have to be you.
Yeah. I mean, in my old job, before I was kind of half part of the IT team, I was part of some of those groups where I was one of the champions for multiple different projects that we had going on because I did always put my hand up and I did like that kind of thing and I wanted to make things better. And so I did get put in those groups and it makes you work harder, it makes you more invested into what you're doing, and plus the company is getting something extra out of you because you're doing your job and you're doing these extra little things. But
Hmm.
I never seen it as a bad thing because I really enjoyed it and I wanted to make my work better. And like I helped implement Asana into the business, and that made leaps and strides of improvements into how we used to run things. It was like this old tick list spreadsheet thing, and you didn't know where somebody was at until they ticked it, and there was no data flow of once you've done this, this person's got to do that, and you had to manually roll the spreadsheet every single month, and then you had to like copy the spreadsheet over and clear out the data, and it was like, oh my god, this is too much. Like Asana, once it's set up and all your tasks are in there because it's quite repetitive, like
Hmm.
accounts and admin, once it's in there, you just set it up for how often you want it to re-tick over. You don't have to roll over a spreadsheet, clear out data. You can put notes in there. You can tag people if they need to do things. People can be notified if the next step of the process is ready to be done. So yeah, it's all that kind of stuff definitely helps. All right, let's move on to the next one, which is they control their costs. Now, that is something, Cory, you've done a lot of in your businesses,
Hmm.
and I'm also looking at going to be potentially providing that as one of my services when I start my business. And so I guess the basis of this is one, and I've talked about this in the past, you've got to know what you're spending your money on in the first place. There are a
Hmm.
lot of business owners out there who don't even take the time to even check what they're spending money on. It just comes out, they've set it up, it comes out of their company credit card or whatever, and they just think, oh, yep, and it's just something that happens every month and nobody questions it because it's just there. And so the first point of being able to even do this is looking at all of your transactions and saying, oh, actually, what is that? Or what does that do? Or do we even have access to that login anymore? And we just continue to pay for it and we don't even know. So without being able to even know what you've got, you can't minimize it and reduce it. And so, Cory, you've actually gone through this kind of process recently. So how did you tackle that, and where'd you go from to where you are now?
So, um, so for my business, I had a spreadsheet. So the way I manage things is I don't typically worry about all the smaller costs like having coffees with clients or little fees here and there, bank fees. I'm not really worried about those things. I look at all my big subscription costs, things that I choose to pay for every year that come at some sort of reasonable cost. And so there's things like, your accounting software, your accountant, your Google or Microsoft account, your phone bill, software. I have obviously design software, um, a whole range of different things. So I have those in a separate spreadsheet, and I know when they renew each year. I know how much they cost me. I know how much they cost per month to make sure that my monthly amount adds up to what the expenses are. Um, so that was all fine. I had that quite tidy. When I merged, obviously this business was a lot bigger and had a lot more expenses than mine, and so I got the team to get a spreadsheet of all the costs. I could also go into Zero and pull all the costs for the last 3 months and grab all the different items, how much they were, and basically go through. The easiest thing to do is go from some of the biggest costs down to the small costs. And what I mean by that is some of the biggest costs you can't change. Your accountant, if you have a good accountant, you don't want to change that necessarily. But then most people will have some sort of Microsoft or Google account, right? So a good point is to start there because those two services, Google or Microsoft, usually have a whole range of other services that people use or double up on. So, for example, Google has a function in the calendar to book meetings. You don't need to have Calendly, that's an extra expense.
Mhm.
Google has Meets, Microsoft has Teams. You don't necessarily need to pay for Zoom. A lot of people just pay for Zoom when they have those features already. Yes, they might not be as good as Zoom, but you're already paying for the services. Um, there's a lot of tools in those two big systems that a lot of people double up on. So that's where I would start, looking at all the services that you pay for and what those services offer, and then go through and make cuts. Um, for my industry, we have proposal software, we have CRM software, we have project management software, we have design software. So, we had the team had we had Canva, we had a CRM, we had Adobe, we
Mm.
had a project management system, all different things. And so I was like, nope, I'm the designer coming into here. We're not having Canva. So Canva was cut. We have Adobe. We have one license. Obviously now I've moved the systems we had into Notion. So it's just about getting a list first and foremost, whether there's costs there or not, and going, what are actually all these things for? What do they do?
Mm.
What do we use them for? How often do we use them? And putting them in a priority list. I actually did this for my business last year, where I had a list and I put, I think, essential, important, and optional
Mhm.
against them. And you have to be fairly strict, but obviously your personal opinion comes into it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So you can go through that and go, okay, well, Microsoft 365 or Google is probably an essential part of any business to have those type of tools.
Mhm.
So that's an essential cost. For most businesses, some sort of insurance is going to be an essential cost to protect yourself. An accountant or accounting software is probably an essential thing to have. Your phone bill is essential. But then you get down to other things that might be important, like, I don't know, I had some subscriptions to things that I thought were important that were supposed to benefit me, but they never did that. So you just have to go through and be quite strict and then go, okay, well, if we want to cut costs, we start with the optional stuff. So for
Mhm.
example, I pay for Microsoft, not Microsoft, Meta Verified personally
Yes.
for my brand. Now that is really an optional cost. And it's not
Yes.
important. It is not necessary or a
Mm.
necessity. It is an optional cost, but I still choose to pay it.
Yeah.
So once you have the list, you know how much they cost you, you know which ones are essential, optional, or important, then you can start culling them. And you might be surprised how much money you can save.
Exactly. And we're not talking about cutting costs where your product quality is going to decline or your service
No,
to
no,
your
no, no.
customers is going to decline. We're talking about those extra unneeded costs that have just kind of fallen through the gaps and you don't even
Mm,
realize you're paying for them. You're not even using the service, or you might be on, I think we've talked in one of the other episodes about reviewing your subscription ratings. So like
mm-hmm,
you could be paying for a 10 user subscription and you've only now got a team of
mm.
3 or 4. So you could go down to the next bracket and then you can save yourself some costs just by doing that. So you're still using the software, but you don't need to be paying as much for it. So
And
it's all that kind of thing.
membership subscriptions, magazine subscriptions, like those things, I can't speak, those things can easily rack up. And
Yeah.
then you go, well, how often do I actually read the magazine that I'm
Hmm.
subscribing to? How often do I read the emails that I get sent? If it's not very often, then you probably should just unsubscribe from them.
Exactly. And with that, we'll move on to the second to last, which is that highly profitable businesses tend to adapt fast and they embrace change when it comes to either like technology or social economic kind of situations or like market trends, all that kind of thing. They're not afraid to look at what's happening out there and take a leap and go for it. Um, I'm trying to think of a situation off the top of my head, but I always tend to revert back to Netflix. They're obviously seeing that embrace and change of technology instead of having to send DVDs out to people. The rise of the internet became, and they were like, you know what? Let's try and do it where we just have them and they subscribe to this platform instead of sending out the DVDs. So it's that kind of embrace in technology or market trends like I know, I mean, this is a quirky one, but up until I was what, 19, maybe 20 or 21, I had never even seen an avocado or heard of an avocado. And then all of a sudden, it felt like everybody was talking about how healthy avocados were. They were the best. And I'm like, wait, where has this vegetable been the entire time? They're obviously there. And then growers just completely exceeded expectations. They just pumped out more avocados than ever. And then they've fluctuated in price. But like now there's like avocado plushie toys and all these other things because avocados then became this big thing and avocado on toast at restaurants and cafes. And it's just that kind of thing where somebody just must have said something and everybody jumped on that market train of avocados, and so everybody was trying to do everything with avocados. Do you have some examples, Cory, that you can think of?
Uh, oh gosh. I mean, the whole like Netflix, Sky, that's probably quite a good one. And I don't know exactly what happened. I haven't really looked into it, but from the outside, Sky would have been in a prime position to do what Netflix done, really, I would have
Yeah.
thought. They had a huge range of consumers already that were paying for their service, with a decoder and everything was kind of built in. So for them to move that to a subscription model, I mean they already had a subscription model, but for them to introduce a movie section and kind of change their model a little bit, I guess, to do what
Mm.
Netflix had done, they would have been in the prime position to do that. But now, as far as I'm aware, they're probably declining.
Mm.
To me, unless you are really into sports, like Sky seems to be like a what is it, Gen X slash like
Yeah.
boomer kind of age. I would
Yeah.
never even think about having Sky in my house. Never would ever want it. And it's like, you know, yeah, taking movies online. The same thing, I guess, with
Yeah.
Uber Eats.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you take an industry, and this is the thing that I talk to my clients about is finding the point of difference, doing something
Mm-hmm.
different. Um, and, those businesses come out of nowhere. They took a boring industry that
Yeah.
no one had thought anything about. Airbnb, another one. I think we
Mm-hmm.
must have talked about this before.
Yeah.
Um, Airbnb, like it just takes the right person to go through a situation and go, oh, actually, why don't we just do this? Why is there no service that does this? See a need, fill a need.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
Exactly. And they just run with it real quick. They become normally the only person in the market for a wee bit. And then other people jump on that bandwagon. Like I think Uber Eats was the first one. And now there's what, DoorDash, and I don't even know. Milk
hmm
Run's kind of a similar thing. I
hmm
don't even know how many other type of ones there would be like in America and all those other countries, but here we've only got like a handful of them. And it's just, yeah, the embrace of technology and changing how people shop and what they want to do is just really going to explode. If you can adapt quick when you see those changes, then you have a better chance of being highly profitable and getting into that space.
High Smile is another one. Flavored
Yes.
toothpaste. Like, why didn't no one think about that for how many years?
Hmm.
Who the
And I
fuck
was
wants to have mint toothpaste every day? Where you can have
ex-
watermelon and peach and strawberry.
Yeah, because I actually know a few people that don't like the taste of peppermint or mint, and it's like what they have very limited options before High Smile. Oh, High Smile? No, no,
Hmm.
it's not called High Smile, is it?
I think so.
Oh, maybe it is. Before they came out, like back in the day, in the 90s, early 2000s, if you didn't like the taste of peppermint or mint, I think there was maybe only like one probably kids toothpaste that you'd have to, if you even if you're an adult, you probably had to deal with that because pretty much most of them are mint flavored. Or if you're
Hmm.
allergic to mint, I don't even know what your options would have been, to be honest. And now we know that there's plenty because I've got all the different flavors.
Hmm.
So yeah, on that, let's jump into the last one, which is they invest in their team and culture. I don't even know where to start with this one because it's clear that the businesses that take care of their people do better because guess what? Your people take care of your customers. And if your people are happy in doing their job, if you have a great culture, if they like what they're doing, if they're being treated and paid fairly, then guess what? That's going to flow onto when they interact with your customers, your suppliers, and anybody else that your business interacts with. It's going to have a flow on effect. So, of course, you're going to do better if you take care and nurture your team. Do you have anything to add on that one, Cory?
um, yeah, I agree. I mean, there's plenty of businesses out there that probably don't look after their team. They're still very big businesses.
Yes.
When you get to a certain size, like Amazon, for example, not
Mm,
dissing Amazon or anything, but they've had controversial things in the media about low wages or bad working conditions or something for their staff,
yes.
um, which is a shame because they're in a position to do a lot better.
Yeah.
I think especially for small to medium businesses, that's definitely the case. That
Yeah.
if your staff are unhappy, they'll leave. They'll talk badly about you, and it's just not going to go very well.
No, it's also going to mean it's going to be difficult for you to find somebody to come in if you've got a bad reputation, and also the cost of having to swap out your team and retrain and hire.
Hmm.
I mean, it costs a lot of money to hire people if you go through agencies and that kind of thing. And so all of those costs are going to eat into your profits. So that's what we
Hmm.
talk about being highly profitable business. If you can keep a hold of your team and you can reduce those extra training costs from people swapping out all the time and you have a high turnover, then that's just going to help keep some of those extra money. Obviously, you're going to invest in your team. So there's always that trade-off, but it's better to keep a hold of them just like your customers. The more that you can keep a hold of what you've got and you've already spent that money to get them, it doesn't cost as much to keep them there and to keep them happy. Right, I think that is this episode all wrapped up. So, just to recap on the 7 habits of highly profitable businesses, they tend to know their numbers, they focus on high margin offers, products, and services, they keep their customers coming back because obviously retention is a lot cheaper than chasing new customers all the time. They also try to automate and follow the right processes to save time, and they control their costs. They know what's coming in, and they don't unnecessarily spend on things that they're not using. They adapt fast and embrace change, and they invest in their team and in the culture of their team in the office. Okay, so we'll wrap that one up there. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode, you've learned something, and again, if you have made it to the end and you're enjoying it, please follow, subscribe, leave us a comment if there's anything you want us to talk about. We're more than happy to engage with you guys and actually give you the information that you are looking for because we're always open to ideas. And we will catch you in the next one. See ya.